Good morning, Sangha. My name is Kunga Nyima, and I'm one of the Dharma teacher interns. If you are joining us on Zoom, there's a link to the temple rituals and practices on page 7. We will be starting this morning's service by reciting the 3 refuges and then the Heart Sutra together. I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the 3 jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and passion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. The Heart Sutra. The Maha Prajna Paramita Hridaya Sutra. The Bodhisattva of great compassion from the deep practice of prajna paramita perceived the emptiness of all 5 skandhas and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, or touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance. No old age and death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering, no cease from suffering, no path to lead out of suffering, no knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna paramita. Therefore, the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance, there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. Buddhas of past, present, and future through faith in prajna paramita attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna paramita is the great Dharani, the radiant peerless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna paramita. Gate gate para gate parasam gate bodhiswaha. Gate gate para gate parasam gate bodhiswaha. Gate gate para gate parasam gate bodhiswaha. The Maha Prajna Paramita Redaya Sutra. Good morning again, Sangha. As I said before, my name is Kunga Nyima. As you may have known from previously heard teachings from Kaje Su, Tangjen Su, Jing Su, and Ige Su, the first teaching assignment for the new Dharma interns is to explain how they got here, how they became interested in Buddhism. On the surface, this seems to be a simple question. I just need to look backwards on my path and review the decisions that I made that led me to this point. Except in Buddhism, there is no permanent, unchanging, separate I to make these decisions. Buddhism teaches that none of us make decisions in a vacuum because our family, our friends, our society, and education all influence how we interpret what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and think about in life. In Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Understanding Our Mind, this sense of an I that we all feel is defined as a function of our consciousness called manas. That's M-A-N-A-S. A feeling that I am. In Western psychology, we could also compare this feeling of I am to our ego, as it performs many of the same functions. This feeling of I am is part of our survival instinct. Its goal is to keep our bodies safe and to satisfy the body's desire to avoid pain and seek pleasure. In order to achieve this goal, the feeling I am has to divide the world up between what is us and what is not us. This boundary between us and not us is not permanent and changes throughout the human lifespan. Developmental psychologists recognize that part of the process of normal growth for infants is to separate their identity from that of their parents, and then as a toddler, to recognize that other children have different feelings than they do. My own development of a belief that I am and that I exist as a separate self started growing as I did in 1968 in Japan, where I was born. I don't remember much of this period of my life because my consciousness was just learning the language that enabled it to store complex memories. I do remember that I had a giant teddy bear as large as myself when I was a baby in Japan. I also remember being disappointed as a middle schooler when I saw a picture of myself as a baby next to my small, normal-sized bear that was only large when seen and touched through the eyes and body of a baby. We had a picture in the chat of myself and my bear on there, so you can see the delusion I had as a child regarding the size of my bear. Unfortunately, this feeling of I am is also the root cause of all suffering according to Buddhism. In order to overcome the suffering caused by the belief that we are separate from the universe, Buddhism teaches that we should recognize that all life is interdependent. My body exists because of the DNA of my parents and of their parents. It exists because the oxygen in the atmosphere can be processed by my lungs, and the sun that warms our planet also provides energy for the food that I eat to survive. Interdependence also applies to the psychological aspects of reality. As I stated at the beginning of this talk, none of us make decisions in a vacuum because our family, our friends, our society, and our education all influence how we interpret what we see, what we hear, taste, touch, smell, and think about in life. Part of the story of how I got here, relates to the religious practice of my parents, or more accurately, their non-practice. My father was Catholic and my mother was Protestant. They met in the Air Force. My father's Catholic church refused to perform his marriage ceremony unless my mother became Catholic also. So at that point, my father left the church. They ended up being married in an Air Force base, and there's a picture of them walking down the aisle, which was lined with men and women in uniform. My father was wearing his dress uniform, and my mother, an Air Force nurse, was wearing a traditional wedding dress. As a result of my father leaving the church, throughout my childhood into my late 20s, there was no significant religious or spiritual component in my life. I think I was pretty firmly living in the hungry ghost realm mentioned by Igyesu a few weeks ago. In this realm, beings are motivated by craving and desire and don't understand that these very forces are the primary cause of their suffering. This all changed when I met my spouse, Therese, and began attending Catholic Mass with her every Sunday at Cathedral of the Sacred Heart in Richmond, Virginia. For the last 27 years or so, I have continued to go to weekly Mass, but have never felt the desire to become Catholic. I'm inspired by Jesus' teachings with regard to helping others, practicing nonviolence, but never developed the faith to believe in a personal God. As I stated before, none of us make decisions in a vacuum because our family, our friends, society, and education all influence how we interpret what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we touch, what we smell, and what we think about in life. My path into Buddhism was a result of the non-religious influence of my parents as a child. Also a result of Teresa's Catholic practice and my in-laws' Buddhist interest. My wife showed me how important a spiritual path can be in your life, but it was her brother Mike and his wife at the time, Pat, that first introduced me to Buddhism. So I came to Buddhism by way of Christianity, which is not that unusual in our culture when many people consider themselves Christians. Later, when my mother died, my sister-in-law Pat gave me the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche, which had a significant impact on me. It was through this book that I was introduced to the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and was introduced to the idea of how to meditate. In my mid-30s, I experienced two life-changing events, both of which were completely outside my control, but they would greatly influence my spiritual practice. If you remember Tongjen Su's talk from last Sunday about the four visions of the Buddha, the visions of the old person, the sick person, the corpse, and then the monk. This would be my version of the Buddha's second and third vision, outside the palace when he encountered the sick person, and then death in the form of a corpse. In 2002, I had open heart surgery, my first encounter with a serious illness. And at the same time, my mother was diagnosed and later died from cancer. The gravity of these two experiences directed me to reevaluate how I was living my life, and I began to look for ways to deepen my Buddhist practice. My career up to this point had been that of a struggling artist, making paintings, teaching part-time, trying to get a full-time college job, while also helping to raise our young daughter, Audrey Claire. After recovering from my heart surgery, Teresa and I decided that I should return to school, that I would have a better chance of getting a full-time job. And she could stay home and raise our second child, Mei Mei, which we are adopting from China. As I mentioned before, none of us make decisions in a vacuum because our family, friends, society, and education all influence how we interpret what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and think about in life. My practice in Buddhism was strengthened as a result of almost dying, having my mother die, and not being able to support my family as an artist and wanting to help grow our family. In 2007, I received a degree in social work from Ohio State University and found a job in hospice care, which brought me to St. Joseph, Michigan, a little beach community 73 miles southwest of Grand Rapids on the coastal Lake Michigan. I continued practicing meditation daily and reading books by various Buddhist authors independently until I stumbled upon Shambhala, Sacred Path of the Warrior by Chogyam Trungpa. I was inspired by this book to seek out a Shambhala center, and I discovered one about 50 miles from my home and attended my first weekend training in 2009. In 2011, I completed Buddhist refuge vows with senior teacher Judith Leith, a Buddhist hospice chaplain, and received the name Kunga Nyima from her. Kunga Nyima means all joy sun in Tibetan. A year later, I legally changed my first name to my refuge name as a way to more fully embrace my Buddhist practice. About the same time, Teresa and I decided to start a meditation group in St. Joseph. I say we decided, but actually, none of us make decisions in a vacuum because our family, friends, society, and education all influence how we interpret what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we touch, smell, and what we think about in life. We started our local group because there was no Sangha to support practice in our community. We had friends also interested in Buddhism, and I had learned enough about Buddhism to feel comfortable coordinating a group of like-minded people. We started meeting out of our home with a few members and developed a simple schedule of sitting and walking meditation, followed by Dharma discussion. Over the past 10 years, our group has varied in size from 3 to 15 members. We named our group the St. Joseph Buddhist Sangha, and we're having meditation and Dharma discussion 4 times per month at the local library. We also had annual retreats. In the beginning, we led them ourselves, and then later we invited Buddhist teachers from Ann Arbor and also the Zen Temple in Hobart, Indiana, to lead them. In recent years, the size of our group has diminished until there are just the 3 of us coming regularly when COVID-19 arrived and we lost our space for meeting together. None of us make decisions in a vacuum because our family, friends, society, and our education all influence how we interpret what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and what we think about in life. I have been practicing and learning about Buddhism for the last 20 years, but this year, because of COVID-19, I became familiar with the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple by listening to the archived Dharma talks and the YouTube recordings. I especially connected to the teachings of Venerable Amko, who shared my counseling background. And I decided to reach out to him for an individual teachings in January of this year. He took me on as a student and led me through the precepts curriculum. Amko confirmed my understanding of his teachings, and he encouraged me to start the Dharma intern teaching program. I was looking for a way to broaden my understanding of the Dharma through studying the core suttas and also having the support of a larger Sangha. So I was glad to be accepted into the program. Then unexpectedly, Amko resigned. None of us make decisions in a vacuum because our family, our friends, our society, and education all influence how we interpret what we see, hear, taste, touch, smell, and think about in life. After deep deliberation and discussion, Venerable Yang Su agreed to be my new teacher so I could continue to build my understanding of Buddhism and my relationship with the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple. The seemingly simple Dharma teacher intern assignment to explain How did I get here? Encompasses a vast web of interdependent physical and psychological relationships that led to my being here. A question that can never be fully and completely answered, but one that also asks you, the listener of my words, how did you get here? In this moment of contact, you and I are also interdependent with each other in all the elements of the universe. We enter our, in the words of the Buddhist teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh. None of us make decisions in a vacuum because our family, our friends, our society, and our education all influence how we interpret what we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we touch, what we smell, and what we think about in life. Thank you. We will now sit for our silent meditation. If you haven't meditated before, I have some beginning instructions. Please find a comfortable place to sit. If you are sitting in a chair, place your feet flat on the floor. Rest your hands in your lap with your left hand inside your right, with your palms up and your thumbs touching. Place your shoulders back and try to sit up straight. Direct your gaze down at the floor, about 6 feet in front of you. Place your awareness on your breathing, the in-breath and the out-breath. If you find yourself becoming distracted, just note it mentally and bring yourself back to your breathing. We have any announcements today? We were gonna we put a link to the newsletter in the chat. So the upcoming events at the temple are all listed on the newsletter. I didn't know if Young Su wanted to say anything about Thanksgiving, or Hung Su, I'm sorry, Hung Su wanted to say anything about Thanksgiving. Okay, okay, yeah, okay, okay. So if you go back to the link in the chat, we'll do the closing gathas. For all unskillful actions ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginning was greed, anger, and ignorance, born in my body, mouth, and thoughts. Now I atone for them all. Vast is the robe of compassion, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Buddha's teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings. All beings, one body, I vow to liberate. Endless blind passions, I vow to uproot. Dharma gates without number, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain.